Hello and welcome to another edition of Digital Dialogues from Maritime Gateway. Today our guest is Mr. Umesh Grover. Mr. Umesh Grover is the Secretary General of Container Freight Stations Association of India, CFSAI. In addition to this, he is also a policy and strategy advisor with Alcargo Logistics and Karanjia Terminals and Logistics, a shallow drafted port adjacent to JNPA. He has previously served Shipping Corporation of India for 39 years, including 14 years on board of the ships and 25 years onshore. He has also worked in several senior positions, ports and logistics sector. He has also served as CEO of INSA and was a trustee on board of JNPT and was chairman of Narottam Morarji Institute of Shipping for 8 years. He was the chairman of renowned IPBCC Karma Home Conference and trustee on board of Tuticorin Port Trust. Thank you very much, Mr. Umesh Grover, for accepting our invitation and joining the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ramprasad. Always a pleasure, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
So let me begin the conversation. When the DPD and DPE were introduced, initially there was commotion, and then later subsequently we got in terms with the changing regulatory systems. And so now I would like to know what is the status of the DPD and DPE and the impact of both these systems on CFS operations.
A very pertinent question for the sustainability of CFSs. Well, let's first start DPD. DPD picked up from 2016 onwards, and for the 6 year from 2008 to 16, it was at 8% as elastic JNPT, and today it is at a whopping 65%. The change was not gradual, it was sudden, because from 8 to 20 to 30, 50, 60, and now for last 2-3 years stabilized because it is reached its critical mass. I don't think you can have more DPD because 35% of the cargoes which are in India, what we get is scrap, basically scrap metal, paper. So that will never go into DPD mode because of the very nature of the cargo. Resort to cherry picking of containers rather than en bloc clearance by the CFSs. So via media was found that let the containers be DPD, let them be cleared, and the consignee or importer can choose to do so either directly or through CFSs. Either directly or through CFSs. Let them be cleared, and the consignee or importer can choose to do so either directly or through CFSs. They all found CFSs more efficient because we could evacuate in 29 hours, and they would take 50, 60, 70 hours, and they will pay penalty to the port and their trucks will get stuck. They are not used to the system. So things are going on smooth for the last 6-7 years. Volumes are down, the income was down, but it is sustainable. All owners are sustaining, and now they are used to it. They are used to this income now rather than what they were used to 6 years back. Now the question of DPE, direct port export, this has impacted CFSs in the last 1 year, especially in JNPT. The reason being, there's been but the government's endeavor to promote more efficiency. JNPA has created a central parking plaza where the government feels all the export boxes which are factory stuff should come to parking plaza, do the documentation there and move to the, ideally it's a wonderful situation. And we have no objections to it because in any case, what is coming from the factories was already going into exports directly to the port. And that's why 75% exports are already DPD before even 2000, all along. Now what has happened is CFS's export volumes continue to be same. The cargo which is catered to CFS's catered there and then stuffed and let export order given. That is going on fine. Earlier, the exporters used to, for their convenience, if they're in the factory they don't have a place, assume he's having 20 boxes to export to a destination. He would fill 4 today, 4 tomorrow, and he'll bring all of them to CFS. And he would, CFS on the last day, just before the gate closure for exports, they will truck it to the terminal and do the formalities. That has stopped with the DP, with the central parking plaza. We have been representing, but the government is not willing to bend. And the volumes hit are roughly about 70,000 TUs per annum between our members. So that's a further loss of income. But then we have to now learn to sustain and be a part of the government rather than keep fighting with the government. We'll fight with the government only on very, very major issues.
You mentioned about sustainability of the CFS business. Apart from DPD and DPE, I feel there are also a couple of other reasons. One being a lot of CFSs around, especially in the JNPA area, because that is the prime container port for us. So too much of competition. Second, I also see there are the rising costs from the private ports. From the recent example, when the charges are suddenly hiked for the export containers. So, can you comment on these two issues?
JNPT is the hub, and the costs are definitely going up for the reason there are two things. There was another source of earning for CFSs was the ground rent, and which two things: one, the trade has got discipline to some extent. Secondly, the shipping lines give 7 to 10 days free time, and CFSs are bent on, we are also have to give it. So there literally no, and the substantial income was from the ground rent because that was the lethargy of the trade. With the efficiency coming in, that source of income is reduced. The problem comes, there's some genuine ground rent which is due to the CFS owners for the cargoes which are confiscated by the customs or which are put on hold. So under HCCR 2009, they brought in, customs rule did not have anything. There were many Supreme Court rulings. So they brought in a amendment by way of a subordinate rule, HCCR 2009, that is handling of cargo in custom area. So according to that, they say that containers, if they are put on hold by the customs, it is for some genuine reason. So you are not allowed to charge the ground rent. But that also defines it with 1 month, 2 months. Here, these containers stay for decades, for months, and our members keep losing the ground rent. So that is another unhealthy part of the whole system.
Okay. You mentioned about customs. So customs being a very, key facilitator for you for CFS operations. So I hear two versions as far as customs operations are concerned. One is that customs has really matured now, and they're bringing up a lot of policy changes which are actually beneficial to the trade, and they're acting very fast and all that. But on the other side, still the trade feels that custom is not trade friendly, and then still there are a lot of issues to be ironed out. So from your perspective, can you comment on this?
I agree with both your points, Ramprasad ji. Let me first talk about the good points on the custom. Yes, they have brought in the maximum reforms which have come are in the customs. They have literally moved to paperless transaction to a large extent. A lot of benefit to the importers at large. But then there are still various issues because with the faceless custom assessment, there are more delays because the officers are not trained all over India to understand what this product is. There's no face-to-face dialogue. But otherwise, yes, there is a facilitation. Paperless, but which gets offset by iSCADE, the main domain for IT of customs, which is very slow and which cannot handle the volumes. And earlier you had a system of manual entry. Here there are challenges but yes, on the positive note, yes, there have been a lot of improvements. However, for the custodians, it is no ease of doing business, but it's more of a pain of doing business because they have started over-regulating the custodians, especially the CFSs and ICDs, and more so in JNP. We do not know the reason because perhaps they have the maximum volumes over here. So over-regulation, they brought in a circular in 50 of 2020, saying that CFSs and ICDs must be examined every year. They asked us to become AEO. You'll have a lot of facilities. You'll get bank guarantee reliefs. All that was done. And they're supposed to get you an AEO for, 10 years. But they issue a AEO certificate only for 5 years. They issue the CCSP license for 10 years, which gets restricted to 5 years because of, and every year inspection, these are costs. And whether you call it in miscellaneous or sundries, it is a huge cost, huge delays, and they want to regulate on every single issue much, much more. I'll give you one example is they want you to take permission for every single vendor who who works for you. Now CFSs are all ISO certificated. They have the best of the clients. They are regulated by the customs. They have got international clients. So they go in for the best of the vendors. We are only supposed to inform them. And they say, no, you take permission, which again is a sort of over-regulation. So there are two faces of this. Yes, the trade importer-exporters have benefited to a large extent, but too much of digitization is preventing them from answer getting at the right time or the refunds, GST return getting at the refund at the right time. Whereas custodians are not really, are into a more difficult era than they were earlier.
We have to summarize the key concerns of your members, maybe 4 or 5. What are the key concerns and how CFSAI is addressing them?
Very nice question, Prasadji. As you may be knowing that CFSAI, along with NACFS, we make all joint representations together so that we cover the entire industry. Now, our first request has been that give us a perpetual license under ease of doing business. I'll give you an example. DG Shipping used to give you general trading license for 1 year. 2014, when I was CEO of INSA, they made it 10 years. And 2015, they made it perpetual. The customs have also mentioned that too much of interface is not required. It leads to corruption. They have documented this, and they gave the custom brokers perpetual licenses for 2 years from 3rd of July 2021. So we've been seeking for a perpetual license, but instead of even 5 years, which they restricted to 1 year inspection, where are we heading for? This was one of the challenges what I mentioned. There are 4 more major challenges which are still troubling us. First is the cost of insurance. We are supposed to be taking on behalf of the President of India insurance for the customs cargo. Customs are interested in securing their duty amount. However, they ask us to take an insurance on the full value of the goods plus the duty amount. And we've been representing the trade, the importer and exporter. Merchant takes insurance from the time of shipment right up to the door delivery. And once he takes an insurance that is for the ocean trade, that prevails. So even if we take an insurance, we will not be able to be benefited by any claim from there. So it's all redundant. We are all paying. There's a total and additional amount of maybe 30 crores being paid by the CFSs and ICDs, which can come down to 5-6 crores. So this will be one saving which can accrue. Another one what I mentioned was about the vendors, permission for vendors. Although CBIC rules are very clear and CBIC is clear, but some commissionerates, especially JNCH, they interpret it in a different manner and their interpretation is taken as the gospel truth. So that is another challenge what we are facing. We have few other challenges which are ongoing. One of them is on the hazardous cargo. Now, all CFSs, when they were built, constructed, the fire department and the SITCO, in JNPT SITCO or whoever the owner who gave you the land, they ensure that your construction is as per this is norms for handling the hazardous cargo. We follow the IMDG code book, which is universal. What the ports follow, since we are extension of ports, we replicate the same. No commissionerate requires a separate permission for hazardous cargo, barring JNP. And that is again after every 2 years. And this also is subsumed in the yearly inspection. So you can imagine the pain or challenges what a CFS operator has to go through with the customs with over-regulation. So these are our major challenges.
But some of the issues we have been hearing for quite long, then why it is taking so much of time for the concerned authority to really get into it and then solve it?
You are very right, sir. For the last 7 or 8 years, we must have made at least 20 or more representations. We met Chairman CBIC, we met Member Customs, Joint Secretary Customs. We are assured that this should be done. They get convinced. They show us the file notings. But apparently, nobody takes any decision. We are never favored with any reply from any of these departments. There's one more pain point is something known as cost recovery waiver. When you set up a new CFS or ICD, they expect you to do minimum so much of threshold limit of the containers as well as the number of wheels. If you fulfill that criteria after two financial years, you are supposed to get a cost recovery waiver. Otherwise, you pay to the tune of 1.7 to 1.8 crores per annum to the government for providing the custom options. Now, after 2 years are over, it is a process. The custom commissionerate has to get the permission from the DGHRD and CBIC and give you cost. Now, our members are facing for last 4 years, they have spent 3 years, they have spent 5.5 crores additional. A lot of them have gone into litigation. Adani's had gone into litigation. There are clear judgments from 3 high courts, but customs do not seem to be honoring them. And this is another very big pain area. One of the members represented to the PMO and they asked, what is this cost recovery waiver? And they said, this customs. He says, isn't it a sovereign duty? Should the government be providing this? That's a question mark.
So let us look at the promoter side. So among us, all these challenges, CFSs also have to innovate in their operation. So you are also talking about for the last couple of years, like CFSs can get into several other activities like handling coastal cargo, domestic cargo, or even air freight. So how much has changed in the perspective of the promoters to give value added services to the customer?
I have been talking on this. We have even demonstrated how a smart yard without creating any physical boundaries with virtual boundaries, we would be able to segregate, aggregate domestic cargo and exim cargo, how it is being done in the ports. We are an extension of the port. We have been addressing this with the government, and in the logistics policy released by our national logistics policy released by the Prime Minister on 17th of September 2022, they did make a mention. But then this policy, it's a policy statement. It is not specific. He says this, how this is to be done is not defined. And ultimately, we have to get back to the customs. So we asked customs for 2 pilot projects. Our members had everything ready. Nothing happened. They said, we are also interested and we'll get back to you. The chief commissioner changes, the new chief commissioner comes, you explain to him. It just doesn't move because the policy has to somehow say these are the steps. These are okay. If you are meeting these conditions, please go ahead and start using. You will see a sea change overnight and all our members will start doing what is being done in a multimodal logistics park. You can't call them multimodal because CFS are better served with one mode of transport because road transport is good enough for up to 200, 250, 300 kilometers cluster. So we call them, don't call them LMLPs, call them LPs, logistics parks or multimodal. Give any nomenclature, but allow us these activities. But it has not moved a millimeter in any part of India so far.
Government of India has set a very ambitious target of reaching 10 billion metric tons per annum kind of a handling capacities at supports, maybe by 2047. So a while ago, we talked about too many CFSs around JNPA. But when this kind of a growth happens in the terminal capacities, port capacities, do we need more CFSs, maybe rationally distributed? What do you see?
Sir, the future of CFSs would depend on what is the size of the port and how much is the capacity available. Probably the model would be that CFSs within the port. Let's take the port of, which is the biggest port which is going to come up is Vadhavan at adjacent to JNP at Dahanu. Supposed to be it's going to be the biggest port with 26, I think how many million TUs, I don't remember often. But we spoke to the chairman JNPT. He says, yes, there will be an opportunity. We cannot develop everything on our own. There is an opportunity, but in case the port has got very large capacity and it's got large import houses and warehouses, the CFSs will be functioning as those warehouses. But the concept and the business plan will remain the same because consignees are not expected to increase their factory premises to store all the cargoes. Cargo will have to be stored somewhere, and it is safest either in the CFS or inside the port. Today, ports are not, so they are to remain decongested, cargo must move out for the next vessel to come, and they are able to do vessel-related activities. But going forward, ports may create adequate land to handle that cargo, for which operators like CFS operators would provide the services to the port. And ultimately, the end user, the importer and exporter will be benefited. This is in line with Indian economy expected to, they're talking about 5 trillion economy by 2025. May be difficult, but yes, we are on our way and could be 10 million in another 5-10 years. This will depend a lot on the global economic situation because India will prosper if other countries also prosper and there is a need of so much of exim trade. But yes, it's good to create the capacity like China created capacity. They ruled for 20 years. Now is India's opportunity. It is good. We welcome this capacity moved by the government of India. If the infrastructure is there, at least we are looking at the future ahead.
On that note, Umesh ji, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your valuable inputs on CFS operations, port capacities, and the customs transition towards the betterment or still many more challenges that CFSAI members are facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ram Prasad ji. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.